Good morning, Digit fam. Adam Dowd here, and I'm trying a slightly new audio setup today. Let me know how you like it. hello@digit.com. So let's get right into it. It is May 20th, 2019, and this is your Digit Daily. You know how sometimes you can have a bad weekend? Like, for example, this past weekend I learned, and this is just a pro tip for all you listeners out there, don't mix your scotch. It's a bad idea, and you'll be paying for it until at least 6 p.m. the next day, or so I've heard. But my weekend was not nearly as bad as the weekend Huawei had. Oh yeah, remember that top story we had on Thursday? It just got a whole lot worse for Huawei. Last week, we talked about how Santa Claus added Huawei to its naughty list, and that meant that companies in the United States could not work with Huawei for any reason. Well, that's not so bad. Most of Huawei's stuff is made overseas anyway, right? Most being the operative word here. Sure, Broadcom and Qualcomm have minimal impact on Huawei's businesses. Huawei makes its own processors and modems for the most part. But Intel still provided hardware for Huawei's servers. Of course, Huawei could probably develop its own hardware in that regard, but then it would run the risk of the Chinese government having a backdoor into Huawei servers and Fortunately for Huawei, they saw this coming, so they stockpiled a bunch of US tech just in case something like this happened. Sources say that Huawei gathered enough US tech to last between 3 months to a year after the cutoff. But there is one part of Huawei's phones that is made pretty much exclusively in the United States, and something you physically cannot stockpile. Android. And if you just muttered, "Holy shit, they are so f***ed," under your breath, well, I hope you weren't in a business meeting at work or watching football with your friends or standing near a hot microphone on your grocery store's PA system, because that would get awkward. But yeah, Huawei is pretty f***ed. Now, the good news for Huawei is that it can still use Android, the Android open source project, that is. It is open source after all. But Google Play, Google services, and general support from Google engineers, poof, without a trace. Of course, in China, this is par for the course. One of the major pains in the butt about importing a consumer phone from China is the runaround that you have to go through to get Google Play services installed on the device. But that's just the thing. It's the runaround that you'll gladly do, because without Google Play services, you don't have much of a phone unless you're in China with access to Chinese app stores and you speak, read, and type in Chinese. Now, you folks who have already imported a Huawei device will still get Google. Support is basically cut off from this day forward. Phones on store shelves still have access to those services. But overall, does this mean the death of Huawei? Probably not. Honestly, this is probably more of a bargaining chip, and a huge bargaining chip at that, in President Trump's pocket. But let's also not forget that iPhones are made where? You guessed it, China. So let's just say the opposition has a few cards to play as well. In the meantime, smartphone competition takes a major hit. Huawei is the number 2 smartphone maker in the world, and now it's not allowed to make smartphones anymore. Well, at least not useful ones outside of China. Huawei has been working on its own operating system for quite some time now, but is that really feasible? Microsoft couldn't make a third operating system work, and no offense to Huawei, you're not Microsoft. At the very least, this will cut Huawei's phone shipments in half. Ouch. Where will all this lead? It's hard to know for now, but you can bet we'll be keeping a close eye on this story for some time to come. But for now, it is time for the roundup! With the release of the OnePlus 7 and the OnePlus 7 Pro phones last week, Android Authority takes a look at whether the OnePlus 6 or 6T is still a viable option. And the answer is yes, as long as you want a fingerprint sensor that sucks. Okay, so I added that last part. But yeah, the OnePlus 6T and OnePlus 6 are still viable, solid phones, and up until I got my BlackBerry Key 2, the OnePlus 6T was my daily driver since last November-ish. It's hard to go wrong, assuming you can find it on sale. Otherwise, spring for the 7 Pro or the Pixel 3 Bad Obsession. You may only think of Bluetooth when you want to connect your phone to a set of headphones because the jerks that made the phone forgot to put in a headphone jack. But the truth is that Bluetooth is everywhere. Don't believe me? Go down to Union Station at rush hour and try to pair a new set of headphones. But as it turns out, Bluetooth is so amazingly complex that manufacturers often deploy implementations of the protocol that are prone to hacking. Like, for example, the padlock company that ironically used an insecure form of Bluetooth for pairing. Just let that sink in for a minute. The padlock company used an insecure form of Bluetooth. Basically, the problem with Bluetooth is that it's not idiot-proof, and many OEMs are staffed with idiots. Spotify is coming for your car. Well, sort of. The music streaming service is opening up a beta program to test out a new device called, and I'm not making this up, CarThing, which is just the best name ever. CarThing will connect to your phone and your car via Bluetooth, hopefully a more secure form of Bluetooth than the padlock company used, and you'll activate it by saying, "Hello, Spotify." Then you'll say, "Play the latest Digit Daily podcast." And then, when you get home, you'll open iTunes or Spotify, and you'll leave a review of the podcast, right? Right? Love you. We've talked about Minecraft Earth, Microsoft's take on Minecraft in the real world, and it looks really exciting. The Sydney Morning Herald has a look at a hands-on demo of the game and explains it in a little more detail. There will be, quote, build plates that users can share and build on each other's work in real time. This is kind of like real-world Legos, only you can leave them anywhere you want and not have to worry about stepping on them barefoot, and trust me when I tell you, that is a 100% win. And finally, Engadget takes a look at Impossible Foods and its rise to prominence in the food industry. Impossible Foods has created one of the best meat substitute patties on the market today, and I'm sorry to report that the nearest Impossible Whopper is 217 miles away from me. But I'm happy to report that it's 217 miles south of me, so in just under a month when I drive to New Orleans, I'll be chowing down on an Impossible Burger. But sadly, not an Impossible Sausage Pizza from Little Caesars, which is now available in Washington, Florida, and New Mexico. And I have to say, I admire Impossible's marketing department. I mean, Burger King and Little Caesars already set an extremely low bar, so it'd be difficult to make the food any worse. So, that is going to do it for today's Digit Daily. If you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes and subscribe to our daily newsletter on Digit.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, leave a review, and don't forget to tell your friends about DigitDailyPod.com. Once again, I'm Adam Dowd, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again tomorrow.